This is RogersTV Moncton, where local matters.
Your show covering local events. My name is Tara Hill, and I'm joined with my co-host, Ricky LeBlanc. We do have some guests with us tonight that I'd like to introduce. First, we have Scott Agnew, who is the facilitator of Occupy Moncton. And we also have Dr. Aaron Stouter. Stouter, yes? Stouter, thank you, Aaron. Department Head of Sociology, Mount Allison University. So thank you for being here. Welcome to the show.
Thanks for having us.
Yes. So what is Occupy Moncton? Can someone please explain what this is?
Wow, that's a hard question to answer in a short amount of time. The Occupy Moncton is basically a subgroup of Occupy everything else. It started off with Occupy Wall Street, and on October 15th there was an International Day of Action or International Day of Rage, depending on your political bent, that basically saw over 1,000 cities worldwide join in solidarity with the Occupy Wall Street movement, and Moncton was one of those cities.
So, where did this idea come from?
It came from a lot of different areas. It's not an idea per se. It's really a feeling. It's an emotion that people are feeling now. That generally speaking, 99% of us are ruled over and controlled by 1% of society that had basically controlled all the wealth. And people have gotten sick and tired of that, and there's been basically a popular movement now that's risen. Started in Wall Street in September. There were 17 people that tried to camp out on Wall Street as a protest. They got evicted. They moved to a nearby park, and it's grown and grown and grown to thousands and thousands of people.
Mm-hmm. So we are the 99%. Explain to us the 99%.
Well, the 99%, it means different things in different countries, because of course different countries have different economies. But in the States, where it started, the 99% is basically talking about how 1% of society in the United States controls over 40% of the wealth.
Is it 1% of society in the United States?
Correct.
So 1% of people that living in the United States right now
own 40% of the United States.
Own 40%
Correct.
of the United States.
Yes. They own 40% of the wealth.
What about, okay, keep going.
The other 99% have the 60% to divvy up. So what the 99% is saying is...
fight over, right? It's all semantics, right?
What the 99% are saying is, this pie needs to be redivided. This is not right.
Yeah.
So it's basically a movement against corporate greed. So it's not a movement against the rich. It's not necessarily a class war. It may be for some participants, for me personally, and that's who I'm speaking for only. This is not a class war. This is a movement to extract corporations from our government. Okay? The situation has grown over the 20th century into the 21st century that corporations now basically control our governments. Their lobby groups are out there, they've got the money to throw at politicians, and they're controlling the agenda. So the 1% controls the agenda for the 99, and we're saying we want to take that back. It's time to put people back in charge, and people before profits.
You bring up an interesting point. You mentioned corporate greed. Where do we differentiate corporate greed and profit? Right? I mean, businesses are in business to make money. Right? That's the reality of it. And I take issue with let's take back, because I don't think we ever had. To be perfectly honest, I think corporations have always been around and they're here to make money. They're not.
They haven't always been around. I mean, right. In modern society, maybe in one form or another.
Right.
But the modern corporation really has only started in the 20th century, or late 19th century, but really in the 20th century where it took its form. And the whole military-industrial complex after World War II and that sort of thing, it grew from there. But just some numbers to give you. In the 60s, Canada's 1% controlled 8% of the wealth in Canada. Okay. Now, in 2007, the latest numbers I have, that 1% controls 33% of the wealth in Canada. So
we're on the heels of the Americans.
Oh, absolutely we are. Absolutely we are. And this is not. It's relatively a new phenomenon that the businesses and the wealthy have been able to grab that much power. And it's been a long process, and I'm sure the professor here can explain it much better than I historically, but it's been a long process where there's been a sort of subtle takeover by business of the agenda for North American and for Western society.
On that same point, Doctor, where would you say we draw the line between greed and profit?
Well, I think a lot of it has to do with deregulation and the rise of a sort of neoliberal agenda, so that there was a point in which we had sort of a social contract. So the idea was that we would take a certain amount of our taxes as individuals or as corporations, and the society would make sure that there was a safety net and that there would be workers' compensation and if there's a crisis in society, healthcare, education, and it would be paid for. And at some point around the 1970s in most of the Western industrialized societies, there was a big, fairly concerted move by the largest business organizations to say, we basically want to opt out of that. We want to cut back our taxes. We want to have more freedom to operate, to sort of do our own regulation about health, safety, water quality, airline traffic, all of these kinds of things. And what we've seen is that the countries that went that route, and not all the countries did, but the United States, the strongest one, but Canada and some of the other countries saw, a huge gap between the very wealthy and then the rest of the population, and also a lot of harm in the society where people were homeless, people using food banks, things that we didn't used to have before. But the countries that didn't go that route, like the Scandinavian countries, Sweden and Finland and Denmark and places like that, they continue to have the social safety net. And if you talk to them, they'll say, we're happy to pay taxes because we know that our taxes pay for everyone to have, at least the basics, if not more than that. So there's great education, great health care, and that's the kind of caring society that they think is like the height of civilization, where we've kind of rolled back really since the 1970s, and that's one of the reasons why a lot of people are upset.
What